Hello and welcome back to the New Zealand Esports Racing Series, coming to you live from the Respawn Esports Centre Twitch, the New Zealand Sim Racing TV Twitch and YouTube channels. It's a pleasure to be back 1 week later in this 2024 online season. And it's time for round 2. And we're going to Brands Hatch, and it's dry, which is excellent. I'm sure the drivers will be absolutely stoked. But nonetheless, we are back. In the commentary box, once again, my name is George Cook, and I'm joined here by Nathan Howe. Nathan, what a round 1 we had. Super excited for 28 laps at Brands Hatch for round 2. And it's now a third of the way through the online season.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, George. Hey, everyone watching at home. Look, as far as season openers go, I don't think we got much better than we did last week at Red Bull Ring. Plenty of stories that sort of developed and plenty of almost rivalries, you'd call it, because this, I mean, we knew this was going to be an epic season, but it's already given us so much. And, round 2, Brands Hatch, I mean, what better way to follow up, right?
Exactly right. And it's sort of similar in some ways to Red Bull Ring, certainly the infield section, but it feels like the whole track is kind of like that. You've got no long straights like you do on Red Bull Ring, except for Pilgrim's Drop, which is going to be the key place for overtakes, but watch out what you do into Hawthorne, because that is not an overtaking area. We're going to talk about that in a few moments' time. Let's get through some information so that we can jump over to our championship standings as they are right now. Then we'll jump into our info slides, and then we'll be jumping into qualifying as soon as possible. So, of course, 6 rounds of online season starting last week. Now, this week, of course, round 2, live finals being on the 16th of November in Wellington. The drivers earning points throughout the initial 6 rounds to get themselves a place in that live finals event. Only the top 10 at the end of this online season will move on to those live finals. And then, of course, the championship points will be accrued at the end of the online season. Those will carry over into the live event and give you that little head start that you might need. We've got 3 racing divisions, of course. Div 1 and Div 2 are the ones competing for those top 10 spots in the live finals. And we've had some switches up this time round because we've had a couple who were relegated, one who was unrelegated, turns out. We've also got a few little bits of sickness around the grid and a couple of people that can't make it. We'll talk about that in a few moments' time. But first, we need to talk about our sponsors. First up, of course, it is this year's New Zealand Esports Racing Series primary sponsor, Toyota Gazoo Racing New Zealand, who have generously provided some amazing prizes. Of course, this year's winner of the championship in the live final is going to earn a Toyota Gazoo Racing New Zealand factory-supported testing session in a Toyota 86 trophy car. That is absolutely awesome. Then we've got Respawn Esports Centre and Secret Labs, who are providing amazing support to the broadcast, the administration, and of course will play host to the live finals in Wellington. Then Next Level Racing also generously providing a number of prizes as well. The categories of those prizes will be announced very, very soon. But we've got a little teaser, Nathan. We saw this last week. I think it's time for us to appreciate this once again. Couple of teaser trailers here for the prizes on offer by Next Level Racing. Let's have a little look, and then we'll be right back. Absolutely awesome. And of course, we do need to say a thanks as well to Red Bull New Zealand, who are going to be sponsoring some prizes as well. Those will be also announced in a short period of time. So a big thank you to all our sponsors for the New Zealand Esports Racing Series in 2024, our second series, second season, of course, of this racing series. And we're excited now to start talking about the championship standings, Nathan. So we've got a bunch of cool stories from round one, as you alluded to. At the moment, it's Caleb Bertels who is leading us away. He beat Matthew McEwen, and Matthew McEwen made a bit of a gaffe in that round one.
Yeah, look, I mean, again, McEwen, you would put your money on him. He is definitely the one. He was the favorite to win. And I mean, look, Caleb was Johnny on the spot. He capitalized on a very rare mistake. It's not often that you see the great Matthew McEwen making such trivial mistakes. It's not even like he did anything radically wrong. He got one corner a little bit offline, and he paid the penalty for it. So I mean, look, it does happen. It proved that he is human and he's not, in fact, this alien. And yeah, I mean, look, the other big story too on the opposite end of the field was, of course, Cameron Nemo. I mean, you alluded to it earlier with the him getting demoted and then remoted. I love that word. That's a phrase you can coin there. Um, and he's going to make sure that that doesn't happen to him again. So I think you're going to see some pretty epic racing both ends of the grid. McEwen because he wants to nab that win, and Nemo because he wants to avoid that demotion.
Exactly, and yeah, unlucky for both Nemo and Logan Nelly as well. That's VTX Blind Man, who was originally in Division 2, got bumped up to Division 1 because Ben Groves couldn't make it, and then unfortunately got, I think it was P14 by the end of the race, so that relegated him back down into Division 2, but he's got that chance to come back, and he got a bit of extra points, maybe in some ways you could argue that, by being in Division 1. But of course, the way that our dynamic driver system works here, or dynamic division system works, is it's based on points all across Division 1 and Division 2. So if you get enough points in Division 2, you can find yourself up there fighting for even more points in Division 1, and those with the top 10 results in Division 1 end up in the live finals. So yeah, there was so much fighting in a good way at Red Bull Ring. That small mistake, as he said, very uncharacteristic for Matthew McEwen. I'm sure he would have liked to have been sweeping and taking home the trifecta that day, but it just wasn't to be. And he got that car all out of shape. Suddenly it's around, and we were flabbergasted at that point, and I'm sure Caleb would have been too, especially once he realized that Matthew really wasn't going to catch up to him by the end. We heard how excited he was on the driver interview last week, which was absolutely excellent. And what a way to start off your season, essentially with a race win. Went from P6 to P1. He talked about that move in turn 3 on lap 1, which got him up to P2 ahead of all the fighting. And in the background, we were going 6 in a row, 3 wide, 2 wide, 4 wide. It was all kicking off down there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, first lap of the first round of the new season, right? And like you alluded to with the floating divisions, this season it really opens up the spectrum to more drivers because last season, if you were in the top division, that was it. That was your shot at qualifying. But now this season with the floating divisions, even if you're in the second div, you're not necessarily not able to make the live finals because of the way the point system works, and it's a very very well put together system. And yeah, like you say, there was so much chaos, so much battling, and these aren't short races. They're decent length sprint races. Like how early do you push? How much do you capitalize while everyone's nice and bunched up? And I think we're going to see a bit more of that now here at Brands Hatch because Red Bull Ring was a perfect track for GT racing, nice and wide, plenty of overtaking spots. Whereas Brands Hatch is a little bit sort of narrower, and perhaps there's a few corners where you wouldn't really want to go for a move. You could try, but it's certainly a lot more dangerous.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It can be a very tricky place to race. It's super exciting when you're on the track battling, super exciting for us and the viewers, of course, to watch. So we're looking forward to 28 laps of that today, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. A couple of other bits of news here in terms of our championship standings in Division 1. Scar and Pukeko unable to make it tonight. So as we said before, Nemo gets re-elevated out of Div 2 to Div 1. And Stone Harbour, who got a great result last time out. He went from P6 to P3. So maybe P6 is a bit of a special position section. I think there's a couple of YouTubers who might disagree about position 6. For those of you who know, then you know. But it seems like position 6 seems to be the place to start. So P3 for Stone Harbor, and with Scar not being able to make it this week means he's going to be up here in Division 1 for a good chance at some solid points today. So let's continue because we've got a ton more to talk about. We want to get into our race as soon as possible. So let's jump over to our info slides and have a little look at the details of today's race. Right, Brands Hatch. And we're here with this beautiful car, the Toyota 86 Group 4 car, 358 horsepower, weighing in at 1,200 kilograms of top speed of 270.4 kilometers an hour, with a performance points rating of 633.77. Nathan, we're going to talk to our interviewees today about how this car feels. It looks like it's a lot of fun to drive, but it's that consistency. That's what's tripping people up.
Oh, look, it's certainly one of the most well-balanced Group 4 cars in the class. Because Group 4 is similar to the GT4 category in real life, but it's not just GT4. There's TCR cars, there's VLN, there's Super Tyque even has an appearance in there, and the 86 Group 4 in particular is sort of reminiscent of the production Nürburgring class that we used to see sort of in the mid 2010s. Progress has changed since then, but this is still a very almost agricultural. It's a traditional front engine, rear wheel drive. It's not overly powerful. It's not overly bulky, and it's just very. I mean, we talked about it, especially at Red Bull Ring. Easy to drive, difficult to master. So what a great tool for this season.
Yep, certainly is. And now let's have a look at the track today. It is, of course, Brands Hatch. 3.92 kilometers, 9 turns, deceptively few corners for such a complicated infield section. We've got a few areas of the track, of course, that you need to keep an eye out for. Located, of course, in West Kingsdown in Kent in England. Opened in 1950 and has had non-stop motor racing at this location for so long. Race lap record here, I believe, is in a 1:12 for the A1 GP back in 2009. So it has got some serious history at this track. Some very famous quarter names, of course, as well. Nathan, look, we've got turns 2, 5, 7 here highlighted on our screens as tricky places to deal with. Sharp hairpin, of course, turn 2, Druids. You've got to take your opportunities when they come. That is probably the best overtaking opportunity that you can find out on track. Turn 5, it's going to be tricky for overtaking, but it is going to be good for getting that speed out of the corner. And then turn 7, of course, towards the end of the lap, Sheens. Such a tricky corner to get right. And I think if we're going to see anyone making mistakes, it's going to be at turn 7. What are your thoughts about this place? I love it.
Mate, the term iconic gets thrown around a lot these days. I think it's lost a lot of its meaning, but Brands Hatch is iconic. Even if you're not a motorsports fan, you very likely know what it is and you know about the track. Originally made in the 1950s, it was dirt. It was made for motorcycle racing, and they ran in the opposite direction. So about sort of the 60s, 70s, it was pressed into a circuit racing track, and they flipped it round, and it's the venue that you know today. But obviously a lot of those corners are great action spots, but you're forgetting probably the most iconic one of all, Paddock Hill Bend. Now, it's not so much of a corner as it's an experience, because again, if you've ever played a racing game that's got Brands Hatch in it, you've probably met that gravel trap. It's definitely it's probably one of the highlight features of Brands Hatch, because whether you're on the GP circuit or even just the Indy circuit, you got to dance with Paddock Hill Bend.
Yeah, and it's either the gravel trap on the left-hand side, the traditional I'm going into the Shadow Realm location, or the grass on the right-hand side that greets you once you finally cut across track, hopefully holding your brakes and come to a stop just in that grassy area. It is a tricky, tricky area, and you're absolutely right. It is a good overtaking opportunity, though. If you can get yourself a good exit out of Clark Curve up the Brabham Straight, you can dive down the inside, but boy, oh boy, you've got to be so careful about how you brake through there. The trail braking, absolutely key.
Oh, it's one of those tracks. It's one of those corners where the risk really might outweigh the reward. But I mean, look, especially in those early laps, we're going to see the field nice and bunched up, and that first run, like I said, you'd almost put money on a few cars ending up in the sand. But these guys are the top drivers in the country, though, so hopefully we'll get a bit cleaner than that. But yeah, look, I mean, Brands Hatch, could you have a better follow up to Red Bull Ring?
Exactly right. So let's look at our strategy information for today. 3 tires available and also mandatory for the drivers out here. They must use the racing softs, the racing mediums, and the racing hards. We've got 7 times tires. So for those of you who don't know, that means that for every lap, the tires are experiencing 7 laps. Then, of course, 4 times fuel today. That is going to be 1x times more. So it was 3 times at Red Bull Ring. Now it's 4 times at Brands Hatch. So you're going to be burning that extra little bit of fuel as well. Shouldn't make a massive, massive difference, but you might be able to think about how your tires and which ones you're on affects how much the car is going to weigh with that fuel weight on board. Expected life for the racing softs, 5 laps. Mediums is 8 laps, and hards are 12 laps. But Nathan, I've seen drivers talking about how the hards might be even good for 14 laps. Could we apply a plus or minus 2 to all these tires? We did see that at Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, I was just going to say we made these predictions for Red Bull Ring, and then some of the guys even ended up going nearly double that distance. So, I mean, look, it's impossible to say exactly how well the tires are going to last. I mean, obviously, there's factors like the weather and the track temperature, and even down to how they're driving. I mean, people starting at the pointy end of the grid, you'd expect them to pick softer rubber and probably push a bit harder. People that find themselves sort of a bit further down the order, they might bide their time and just be a bit more casual. And as you said, there were people at Red Bull Ring who their tires were actually in pretty good shape even after our predicted stints. So yeah, look, there's a variety of strategies, and having all 3 tires too, because the Red Bull Ring, it was only the 2 tires. So now they have to use all 3. I think we're gonna see a wide variety of strategies and various pit stop timings play out over the
Yep.
course of these 28 laps.
Couldn't agree more. It's going to be fascinating to see what the drivers do with the strategy today. Speaking of drivers, we've got a couple of, well, 3 actually, a few, I should be saying, a few driver profiles for us to go through before we get into qualifying, which is going to start in a few moments' time. First up, it is our first race winner of the 2024 season, Caleb Bertels from Dunedin. He has come 3rd overall in the Toyota Racing Series 2023. Congrats to that for last year. Excellent work by Caleb, showing that he's got a lot of speed out there. And then, of course, he's currently studying to be an accountant. What is all of these GT7 drivers in New Zealand studying to become accountants? We've got a demographic forming here. So moving on, we've got Simon Bishop here from Dunedin as well. And this is the face that you should all recognize if you have followed the GT World Championship for the last, I think it's something around 8 years or something, for a long, long time.
Up until very recently, yeah.
That's right, because he did technically retire from GT World Series racing since 2020. I think was it early this year that he had his
Last
last
year,
one.
end of last year, yeah,
End of
was his
last year was his last one. So, of course, 10-time International Gran Turismo competitor, World Championship race winner for Team Toyota in Germany 2019, a certified KFC enjoyer, mad respect there. And, of course, he has beaten Lewis Atkinson in round 1. Very, very important statistic right there for Simon Bishop. And to round things out for our driver profiles today, Gareth Collier from Rotorua, one of the nicest chaps you could possibly meet. We met him back in 2023 for the NZERS. Finished 8th in that NZERS series. Currently working as a senior fire alarms technician and a father of 2 with a hot wife, smiley face with a t-shirt on called Mad Dad Skills. Absolutely mad respect to all of our drivers and some great profiles there. Right,
Now,
Nathan.
watch out for Gareth, I reckon. He's my vote for dark horse, I reckon,
Okay.
because I mean, you saw how he was putting the pressure on some of those front runners at Red Bull Ring. I would be very keen to see how he goes at this one.
Awesome. So we are getting ready now for qualifying. I think it's time to hit that big red button and let's get out on track. Chat, do let us know your predictions. By the end of the race, we're going to have a poll up on the Respawn Esports Center channel, and that will give you the ability to vote for your driver of the day. We will try and give you some picks from the best stories around the round 2 that is about to begin. But thank you all for joining us in chat here on the Respawn Esports Center Twitch, over on also the Twitch channel for NZ Sim Racing TV and their YouTube channel. We're going to be uploading VODs to the Respawn Esports YouTube channel at some point in the near future. And qualifying, 10 minutes, of course, going to be really, really interesting to see, because last time at Red Bull Ring, it was completely flooded. There was no room for mistake. The drivers were dealing with these very tricky conditions out there. And this is going to really, I think, help to set an idea in our minds about who is going to be fastest out there. Dry conditions predicted for the entire day today.
Yeah, the wet quali, there weren't too many people happy about it. There was a few grumbles and groans, but when you're the best, you're expected to perform even in conditions of subpar. But Yeah, it's looking better for this round. Obviously, Gran Turismo now has a feature where you can actually check the weather leading up to an event. So looking at it now, there's just no rain. There's not even a cloud in the sky. I mean, there's a cloud right there, but the point is, I think we're going to see a nice dry race, and so we'll get a bit more of an idea of who's got that one lap pace because again, there's a difference between quali pace and race pace, and we're about to see it now, aren't we? Shall we hit that button then,
We
George?
certainly are. Let's hit that red button. And of course, we've got to mention as well, Simon Bishop is going to be running a new livery today. We'll keep an eye out for that. And Simon Bishop also not feeling particularly well. So we'll keep an eye out for all of that as we now head out on track in a few moments' time once the qualifier has begun. Nathan, this is going to be great. I love that we've got qualifying on here as well. And we can get a good idea of what these drivers' pace is going to be like out on track today, because it's certainly going to be quite fast at a track like this. It's short, it's sharp. And these cars, they've got a week's experience now under their belt. Now they've got to use that and put that to good use. Let's go out on track and have a little look and see what's happening with qualifying. Okay, here we go. The first drivers are out on track, and the first one that we focus on is Simon Bishop. This is a throwback to Igor Fraga's Twitter Racing Series livery in 2020. So a nice dark, deep blue, a little bit of blue highlights through there, and that nice black layer too. Absolutely love this livery, and I do recall watching exactly this when they had that Toyota Racing Series. An absolutely fantastic bit of racing that season, wasn't it?
I was there for that race, the Grand Prix that year at Hampton Downs, and yeah, it was just awesome. Not very often you see chrome liveries on racing cars these days, because obviously wrap is, you know, they usually go for sort of the flatter or the more glossy, but yeah, actually bona fide chrome is a bit of a rarity. It's very attractive, isn't it? Especially on a clear day like this, where you can really make the most out of that shine and that sheen. And you know, maybe that's part of his sneaky plan, is to try and blind everybody behind him with the shiny chrome.
Yeah, that'd be some pretty clever tactics there. He's going for the full, give it everything. Anything and everything to get an edge in this competition. And if he does manage to pull that off, and we do get a few blinded drivers out there, I'll be most impressed. A little bit of a stretch, I'd say, with British weather the way it is, but it is looking rather shiny out there, so maybe that is going to be the case. First out on track, of course, HC Lewis. He's just on his out lap, so we'll see him get his first lap in a few moments' time. I'm not quite sure the times we're expecting to see here today. We've already got Airborne jumping into the pits. He was on hard tyres. Not the tyre you want to be on for qualifying, Nathan.
Well, you know, if that's the biggest mistake that he makes this race, then that's not the worst fate in the world, is it? So yeah, hey, look, it probably harkens back to the old World Series days, because what used to happen was that you didn't get the chance in between quali and the race to make a tyre switch. So if you wanted to start the race on a certain tyre compound, you had to start your qualifying session on it, then chuck your quali tyres on, then yeah. So probably a bit of muscle memory for him, because he's actually been out of Gran Turismo for the last couple of years. He's more of a FIFA player. He's a professional FIFA player. And yeah, he might not even know that there's a mid-session interim now. So amusing, no less. But yeah, he's on the stickies now. Hopefully, we see a equally respective lap, as we just seen. Nemo's just had a moment too. So you know, these guys are already wasting no time finding the edge, finding that razor's edge where they got to really push for this time, because again, top guys in the country, you can't really leave anything on the table in qualifying.
Yeah, looks like he had a little bit of a problem down at Surtees. Really tricky corner to get right. Sort of feels like a double apex. Technically isn't, but the way that the corner's profiled, it does feel like that two apexes that you've got to kind of hit. You've got to go wide of the corner, bring it in. Got that gravel trap on the outside line that can really throw the car awry. First lap's coming in now. 129.365 is the benchmark set by HC Lewis. Dive cable set to 29.448. It's already really close at the top. Dive cable, your dark horse there, up into P3. And that's Simon Bishop with the fastest lap now at 29.186. That is only a couple of tenths in it, and I think there's only about a second between the top 8 right now. This is fantastically close.
Yeah, top 9 actually. Scotty Ray just jumping into there. He's 0.999 off the leader. So we've got 9 cars within a second of each other. Matthew McEwen sitting nicely in the middle in 5th. He's not going to be happy with that. He's going to want to push for more. The other thing too I'm noticing is that fine British weather, clear day, temperatures are up. these guys are really burning these tyres. So might be interesting to see if anybody goes for the mid-quali session tyre change, because I tell you what, I'm looking at some of these tyres already, and yeah, you're probably not going to go much quicker on them.
Yeah, I think it's a point where you've got to absolutely send it in these qualifying sessions. It's so close already, and we've got 0.083 between HC Lewis dive cable and then dive cable to Monkey Matt. So equal, tiny, less than a tenth gaps between P2, 3, and 4, which is fantastic. We had just saw dive cable going a little bit wide at Hawthorne Bend on the exit, kicking up a little bit of gravel. That won't help the grip for this lap. Coming around the final corner, Clark Curve, a lovely area there. That is Big Head Ted, I think, going for a bit of a slip. HC Lewis is in the pits already. That's made a big impact on Dive Cable's lap. I think he's actually had contact with Big Head Ted there. So they've actually come together, and that is really unlucky, because that's going to be Dive Cable's lap all to shreds. And now I think exactly what you were saying, especially if you've made a little bit of an error, gotten those tyres dirty, jump into the pits, get a new set on. You've only got 5 minutes left in this qualifying. Everyone jumping in now. So I think that was quite clearly the way to go. Burn the tyres up, get in, get a fresh set on, go out, set another really fast lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I mean, Dive Cable's the only one so far who hasn't pitted of those sort of top 5 front runners. The other thing too, you don't want to reset back to pits, because sometimes you see them do the full lap and then they pit, and we get the question, why don't they just like return to pits? It's so much quicker. But what happens there is that they get a full tank of gas again. So these guys want to try and get the freshest tyres with the least amount of fuel to have that real. It's a qualifying setup. I mean, it's not a setup, it's more of just an absence of fuel, but having less weight in the car, this is what these guys do to try and get those extra tenths, or those extra, just those little, anything to give them an advantage. And like you say, 5 minutes, that's not a lot of time. That is a very rapid fire qualifying session. So yeah, and I will bet you we'll see Dive Cable in the pits this lap. He'll probably have enough time for his outlap and then one more hard push. Not that it's really going to hurt him too much. He's still sitting in third. So like I said, he's doesn't really make himself out to be too OP, but he certainly can take it to the big guys.
And exactly right, Dive Cable into the pits. So is GD Crimson. Looks like Scotty Ray is also coming in. So he's one of those who got elevated up from Div 2, got third place in his division. So congratulations to him. Nice livery on that car as well. Have to respect it very much. Some really good liveries this time round. We saw a retro PlayStation livery too, which eventually we shall find. Airborne into the pits as well. All of them trying to burn as much fuel as possible. 79% looks to be about the average for the number of laps that they've completed right now. Should be around 4 laps completed for each car. But yeah, you just got to drive the socks off these things. And look, even tire warming happening by Clan Fever here, trying to desperately get a bit of extra temperature in the tires before he starts his next hot lap.
Yeah, that's the thing. Gran Turismo really doesn't make it obvious to the casual players, but it does have tire temperature. So you can have you can overheat your tires, but conversely you can have cold tires. It's implemented in the game, albeit, like I said, you wouldn't know that it was a thing if you weren't looking for it, but it does exist, and these guys are experienced enough. They know the ins and outs of that sort of thing. So yeah, like you say, anything they can do to set that car up for that one golden lap, they're doing it at the moment. So actually, I think Airborne is your retro PlayStation livery. You're just talking about him. Quite attractive with the old sort of PlayStation 1 console style, and it's actually very.
I love it.
I used to have a PS1, but that one died. I've still got my PS2 after all these years, and then I got a 3, then I got a 4, then I got a 5. Are you getting a PS5 Pro at all, George? Or?
Oh no, I won't be getting the Pro version, but I'm the same with collecting consoles. PlayStation 1 is long gone. PlayStation 2, I've got 2 of them, turns out. Didn't even know I had 2 of them, and suddenly I had 2 of them. No idea. PlayStation 3, not so much. Quick thing to note here, Caleb. So our race winner from last round, he is yet to set a valid qualifying time that's good enough to get him anywhere close to the podium. He's on purple sectors through sector 2 right now. Let's keep an eye on board with what he's going to be doing, because this is going to be critical, this lap. 8 minutes and 20 seconds on the clock. He'll have another lap after this one, which will probably be the best one. His tires will be up to temp, and he'll be ready to go with even less fuel on board. Let's see what he is going to do. Across the line we go. It's going to be a 29. Oh, it's a 28.9. 28.9, and that's good enough for P1. The gauntlet has been laid down by Caleb, and what a lap that is, and a 10th clear of Matthew McEwen, who found his way finally up into that top 3 position. Sits in P2 right now, behind just ahead of Simon Bishop with HG Lewis in P4, but Caleb, our first 28 lap here at Brands Hatch in these Toyota 86 Group 4 cars. That is a statement, sir.
Oh, we wondered if it was going to happen, and I mean, McEwen will be looking to respond, but he might run out of time. His tyres are a bit subpar, and as we get to the latter end of the session, you're going to start to see some of those people that just slip in, or the people that have an issue with, again, you're seeing it now. McEwen's tyres are toast. He's understeering off into the grass and making all manner of mistakes. I'm just trying to filter through and see who might get one more in. Lewis might get one more. So too Cy Bishop. Anyone else on a purple sector or going particularly well at the moment?
I think it's all going to come up to this last lap. It's all going to come up to this last lap. There's a few coming across the line to start those now. HC Lewis is one of them. Your top 10 right now looks like this. Caleb, then Matthew McEwen, then Simon Bishop, then Lewis Atkinson, then Dive Cable, it's Gareth and Crimson. Then Monkey Matt in P7, followed by Nemo in P8. Then we've got Big Head Ted in P9. And then one of our new entrants up into the grid, Fat Boy Hustle, has found his way into the P10 spot. Caleb has come into the pit. That is his qualifying over. The overlay right now says 4 minutes left. That is not true. Qualifying is nearly over because it is the final lap for all the drivers out there. Caleb's going back out, but it's going to be of no avail. Matthew McEwen is now coming towards, or he's going down Pilgrim's Drop towards Hawthorne. This will be the last lap that he manages to get in. I think he's got Simon Bishop a few corners behind him. This is absolutely critical for these three drivers. Can they find that type? Nathan, there's only 3/10 in it between the top 5 right now.
Yeah, it's tight at the top, and again, we wouldn't expect anything less from literally the top drivers. But yeah, this is now or never. It's do or die. So I mean, hold your breath for the next 60 seconds, because we're going to see definitively what the order is.
That's right. It looks like Matthew McEwen has backed out of that lap. He let Nemo on through. I don't think this is going to be an improvement from Matthew McEwen, so it might be his qualifying over at this stage. That means it could be a P2 or maybe even a P3, depending on what Simon Bishop and HC Lewis have to say about it. Yeah, he'll come across the line. There's nothing extra that he can do. A little bit of gravel picked up there by Simon Bishop as he goes through turn 7, through Stirling's, now to Clark Curve. This is going to be key for him. Looks like he's on for a good time at the moment. I don't know if he's gone purple through any of the sectors. We shall see in a few moments' time. Across the line, Simon Bishop. Is it going to be a 28? It is not. It's a 29.1. Does not improve his position. He stays in P3. HC Lewis will now sit in that P4 position. P5 goes to Dive Cable. Crimson in P6. Wow, that was very, very close at the end of that race. What an incredible little bit of racing that was for qualifying, because there was a little bit of push and shove in some areas, mostly in terms of drivers giving up a little bit of position on their laps, notably Matthew McEwen, who finds himself in P2. But man, we've got to talk about Caleb. He's got a 128.968 on the board. He is pole sitter for this race. Absolutely stunning work by Caleb once again, and he is looking like a real challenger this time.
Mate, he made his intentions clear right at the start. He said that he was here to win, and he was here to be the best. And he's been doing all the practice he can. He's been racking up all the mileage and really trying to make that a fact. And you're seeing it now. He's topped the timetables. He's the only driver in the 28s. So that is, that's how it is. But
Yep.
We're just looking at. So we just lost someone in the quali there, so obviously we'll try and get them back.
We sure will. And of course, we're going to have our qualifying interview with our pole sitter in a few moments' time as well. For now, let's go through the results as they are. Caleb takes P1 in this race, 28 laps of Brands Hatch, and he will be starting on the front row, the front position. And then, of course, Matthew McEwen in P2, followed by Simon Bishop, then Lewis Atkinson. That is your second row of the grid. Right there. Dive Cable takes P5, followed by P6, GD Crimson. Monkey Matt in P7, followed by Big Head Ted in P8. Nemo takes P9. This is his redemption drive. He's got to make it stick in that top 10 this race. Then Fatboy Hustle up from Div 2 and performing well, gets himself a P10 position. So 10th out of 10th, still in the top 10. Followed by Airborne in P11. Scotty Shot, that's Scotty Ray in P12, also moves up from Div 2. Clan Fever is in P13 at the moment. He is going to want to improve that in rapid order in the race when he goes through. And then P14 at the back of the grid, it is Stone Harbor, also up from Division 2. We are going to switch over to our interview in a few moments' time. Chat, start to talk to us. What are your predictions for the upcoming race? What an exciting qualifying we have just had there. And now it is time to have a quick chat with our race interview. Once I find my mouse again. There it is. I've managed to find my mouse. Excellent. So our pole sitter, of course, Caleb, mate, on the back of a fantastic bit of racing and a little bit of luck, admittedly, at Red Bull Ring. Now you're here setting the benchmark for qualifying pace, the only person in the 28s. That must feel good to start at the beginning of this race, round 2 at the start, right at the top of the grid.
Oh, I mean, yeah, feels great. I mean, my first lap in qualifying, I don't know if you guys saw it, but I spun coming down the hill, and obviously I didn't get to set a proper time, so it was all on the line for the last run. So I knew I just had to give it, balls to the wall and just send it, and I managed to pop in a 28, which is a good lap. So, and happy to be on pole position.
Yeah, congratulations again. Yeah, we were wondering because you were sitting P14 with a delta of about 7 seconds to P13 for quite the period of time. And it really was that last lap dash. You had to give it absolutely everything that time, or you weren't going to be up there. And I think the final gap there was about 0.124 of a second to Matthew McEwen. So that's really, really right on the edge. However, now you are starting on pole position. That does mean I think you're starting on, I think it's the left hand, the outside line of turn 1. How does that going to make you feel?
Yeah, bit nervous.
As it should do.
If the other guys are on a softer tire, then could be in trouble. Who knows who's going to pick what tire, and it could make the difference at the start.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Turn 1 always going to be tricky. Then, of course, Druids, not an easy place to start a race. Is there a mentality that you're taking into the second round of this race on the back of a round win in round 1 that is going to potentially carry you through this 28 laps?
Just keep my head cool, just try and stay calm, and just hopefully bring home the P1. Get
Great.
2 wins in a row, hopefully.
Excellent. We wish you the best of luck. And also, at some point, especially if you come back here for the winners interview for the race, if you do manage to get it, I've got to ask you all about how many accountants there are in the New Zealand Esports Racing Series. It just seems to be quite a lot of them. And we're suspecting there's some sort of coincidence going on here. We're going to get the tinfoil hats on later, I think. So, Caleb, thank you so much for jumping in for the interview, mate. Best of luck for the round 2. And good luck and congratulations on the pole win.
Great. Thanks so much.
Fantastic.
So you heard it here first, guys. That's George's pick for the win.
Yeah, potentially. Hey, look, we don't do predictions here. We make prophecies that turn out to be false. That's from the words of the great Murray Walker. For those that know, then you know. Nonetheless, yeah, we're looking forward to it. And I think Caleb really has set the benchmark. But as I said, and as you alluded to earlier, Nathan, it's all about that turn 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask him what he thought about the tire wear because that was pretty brutal. I mean, how many people pitted multiple times in some instances just to get the tire grip for that one golden lap? So, yeah, sometimes the quali can be more tactically minded than the race itself. But I mean, if that's how quickly the softs go off, I mean, the mediums and the hards will be, it'll be interesting to see how those first few laps play out because, like you say, you really want to make moves while everyone's nice and bunched up. But if your tires are going to look like that after 3 laps, and we're doing 28, I mean, it's a fine line to balance. This is where the tactically minded people will come into effect over the outright quick.
Exactly right. It's all about the strategy today, really is. And some of the drivers think they can get half the race distance on the hards, but of course they'll be slower. The degradation's still going to be high on those hard tires, especially towards the end of the race. Not going to be an easy race for anyone out there, but we are going to get ourselves ready for what's going to be a fantastic bit of racing coming up. 28 laps, 7 times tyre wear, 4 times fuel at Brands Hatch. What a brilliant way to do round 2. Of course, we do have to thank as well Next Level Racing for sponsoring our interviews, both the qualifying and race interviews sponsored by the Next Level Racing. So again, big thank you to all of our sponsors who are jumping in and giving us the ability to put on such an amazing esports racing series. Okay, in chat, everyone in chat, you need to let us know who your predictions are. Who do you think is going to take it today? Is it going to be Caleb? Is Simon Bishop going to find a way up? Is Matthew McEwen going to get a good start, dive down the inside of turn 1 and maybe find a way to get into that lead early on and build a gap? If you do find yourself in the lead, building a gap is going to be absolutely crucial. Let me know in chat. I'm going to keep an eye on chat right now. I'm looking at you guys right now. Give us your predictions. Tell me who you think is going to win this race. Who do you think is going to survive through turn 1 and start building the gap? So we've got to vote for Scotty. We've got to vote for Caleb. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm actually, this is another good point here. We do not know exactly how these Div 2 drivers are going to fare in this Div 1 field today.
Well, that's the thing too, because these guys have gone from being the top of their respective divisions to, I'm not gonna say the bottom of this division, but yeah, the people that won Div 2 might not necessarily find it so easy in Div 1. So yeah, that's an interesting narrative to sort of see how that plays out. And I mean, again, Brands Hatch, it's such an equalizer because yeah, you might be genuinely quicker than the guy in front, but you can't just drive straight through him. You got to somehow get past him. And Brands Hatch, there's only a handful of corners you can safely make a move and make it stick. So, and again, factor in the tire wear, because if you're trying to make a move on brand new tires, easy as, but you try to do that on tires that have seen a bit of mileage, you might struggle.
Exactly right. We're going to keep a very close eye on the storylines that are going to evolve today. And Nathan, when you're ready, you just let me know and we'll head out on track and hit that big red button. I'm seeing a couple more votes come in for Caleb. One vote saying Caleb to lead on the lap 1. Stone Harbor not backing himself. He says he ain't no Senna. So he's not backing himself for a race win today. But hey, you never know what goes on. You might just have the pace. So stay positive and let's see exactly what's going to happen.
Hit that button right now then, shall we?
Fantastic. Let's do it. Okay, it is race time, ladies and gentlemen. NZERS round 2 kicking off in about 5 seconds' time. I am really, really looking forward to this one. Nathan, this is going to be a fantastic race. I just cannot wait. We're going to go out on track in just a few seconds' time, and then we will get this race started. Will it be Caleb? Will it be Simon Bishop? Who is going to take it? Who is going to end up in that gravel trap? We're finding out in a few moments' time. And we will be seeing the lights go in just a few moments. And there is something massively wrong happening with this capture. 1 second here, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to switch back to another view and see if we can get this going. Some minor technical issue happening right now. There we go, and the start has happened. We are lights out. Caleb does manage to hold it round the first corner there. And that's going to be Matthew McKeown sliding in just behind him, followed by Simon Bishop, who's looking a little bit racy, trying to find the inside line. There's contact between the two. HC Lewis round the outside, but he's going to get forced back into 4th place. Dive Cable's right there, looking at the top 4, going, yep, fight. Go for it, because I'm going to take advantage. Caleb very wide through Graham Hill Bend, but he does manage to keep it under control, doesn't put a foot wrong in that corner. Let's go into and up towards Pilgrim's Drop. Matthew McKeown putting all sorts of pressure on the back of Caleb. And there might be a tyre difference here. We shall see. Look at Matthew. He's trying to get that slipstream, but the wall of air, as soon as he pulls that car out onto the left-hand side, he hits that wall of air and the overspeed just disappears. So he's got to pull back in. They're going to be side by side through Hawthorne. That's dangerous. Dangerous territory there. Caleb holds on beautifully. This is great racing by the 3 because Simon Bishop is right in this, followed, of course, by HC Lewis. Stunning work by all 4 of them. Dive Cable still just sitting there, waiting. Up the hill we go. Sheen's curve for the first time on lap 1. A little bit wide from Caleb. He's put a couple of tyres onto the gravel. That's not going to be good for the next little bit of racing because his tyres are going to be rather dirty. He's done it again. So that means that Matthew McKeown is now got a real opportunity. He's going to try around the outside. Defensive moves there from Caleb, trying to hold on for this lap 1. Looks like we've got a prediction that was maybe true. Lap 1 held by Caleb. Is it going to be the case? Matthew McKeown up the inside as they head down Brabham Straight, and it's going to be into first corner. And it looks like Matthew McKeown is going to have the inside line. Late braking by Matthew McKeown. He's taken the race lead. Simon Bishop, what a move up the inside. Takes advantage of the position. Caleb all out of shape. And Caleb falls to P3, now under attack by the Hooncorp car. Nathan, what a start to this race.
Yeah, Monkey Matt's finding himself in the similar position that he was at Red Bull Ring, where he's close enough, but he's just sort of within cooey. He's watching all these guys squabble and waiting to capitalize on any issues that may arise in front of him, but he's Johnny on the spot. He's got plenty of room to the back. Absolutely erratic race. Not erratic, but it's, yeah, this is, I mean, where do you look? Where do you watch? McEwen's taken the lead, and we've seen this narrative play out before. Caleb, though, is dropped down to 4th, so he's, I mean, that's just how close it is. You make one minor issue, and you've dropped 3 places. He's off the podium, so such an interesting and engaging first lap, but again, it's way too early to make any concrete predictions on this is the pecking order.
Yep, that's exactly it. It's going to be a tricky one. Let's keep an eye on the proceedings. We don't know what the strategy is yet from the drivers. That's going to be absolutely key to take into account. So we might see some early speed from some drivers, and the ones that are going a little bit slower may just not have the grip. I think Caleb is probably in that. I think he might have alluded to it in the interview, worried about a tyre difference and maybe seeing these drivers like Matthew McKeown and Simon Bishop finding a way through early on. Caleb still in P4 at the moment with HC Lewis going on through. Dive Cable's falling slightly off the back of them with Monkey Matt now coming into the fray as well. And I apologize as well. We've had a few little technical glitches that we are attempting to sort out in flight right now. So just bear with us as we continue to deal with those. And that's nearly a move there for, I think that is Nemo. So Nemo's coming back into this battle as well.
Well, I mean, like we said before the race started, you know, Nemo's going to be doing everything he can to avoid the fate that he suffered at Red Bull Ring, where he should have been demoted. He's back in Div 1 by the grace of a few withdrawals and people unable to make tonight's race. So he's going to want to take that opportunity with both hands. He's sitting in 7th at the moment, which I would imagine would see him in Div 1 for the next one. But absolutely, if the opportunity arises that he can make any more ground, I'm sure he's going to take that with both hands.
Exactly right. So now HC Lewis looking on the back of Simon Bishop. It is getting very, very close. And Lewis, as he always does, looking very racy, especially in a situation where it's full send on whatever tyre set they are on. But Matthew McKeown also under a huge amount of pressure here by Simon Bishop. Great friends in real life, all three of them, when it comes to racing out on track. They are so competitive with each other. It is a fantastic story. Oh, Matthew McKeown gets all out of shape on the exit there. That is a critical position that he could be putting himself in if he's got dirty tyres, especially going into turn 1, but not able to be capitalised on by Simon Bishop at this stage. These three absolutely going for it. You love to see this.
Yeah, interesting too, because I mean, we talked about tyre strategy with 3 different sets of compounds to use. There's only one driver on the soft tyres, and it's not who you think it is. I'm not going to say who it is, but it is not who you think it is. So everyone else is all the mediums or the hards. They're keeping the softs in their back pocket for a little bit later. So it's going to be interesting to see how some of these tyre strategies play out, because again, we're already starting to see these guys not necessarily tear up their tyres, but I mean, the more you're battling, the more you're defending, the more you're compromising your outright speed.
Yep, that's exactly it. So we'll keep a very close eye. Mediums would probably be the ideal starting tyre. If I was to race, and I'm not a racer, I'm not a good racer, let's put it that way. I'm a washed up racer. That's why I do commentary now. But I'd be on the mediums. I think that would be the tyre to go for. Take advantage of people who are on the softs and are going to end up in the pits early. Try and build some good laps on those medium tyres. But at the start, you know, sometimes taking that racing soft tyre and getting the slicks going as soon as possible can be the way to go. Let's go through our grid. As it stands right now, these three still battling at the top. Matthew McKeown leads from Sidog. That's Simon Bishop from Lewis. All three of them going very wide at Sheen's curve. Not an ideal way to go through there, that is for sure. And of course, we've got Caleb. Oh, he's done a little bit of a gravel excursion, let's call it, just before we head out towards the final quarter. So Caleb just still struggling a little bit on those tyres, whatever he is on. Then Dive Cable. Then we've got Monkey Matt.
From Dive Cable. Dive Cable is up the inside.
He is taking it. Dive Cable, that's unequivalent. He's got the inside line, turn 1. Dive Cable goes ahead. So P4 to Dive Cable, and Caleb falls back to P5.
Absolutely, and now Monkey Matt's going to try and do the same thing here at turn 2, and of course this is where you really want to make a move, and Monkey Matt goes for the lunge. Is he going to have the inside? He's going to have it, but is he going to make it stick? They go too wide, but now Caleb's going to have the inside on the switchback, so it's not over yet. But yeah, Monkey Matt really made his intentions clear with that one. He's not here to wait around, and as nice as that rear bumper looks, he'd rather be in front of it, but yeah, I mean, look, and again, this is hurting Caleb. Caleb is absolutely bleeding time and tyre life because he's just under assault. But then again, early days, we don't know. When the pit strategies all come into play and everyone's on different rubber, the pecking order of pace is going to change dramatically. And then there's the question of fuel, because unlike the Red Bull Ring race where they only really needed to put in a little bit of fuel, it looks like these guys are going to have to do a bit more in the fuel management department.
That's exactly it. Of course, new livery for Monkey Matt as well. I think Nemo's livery has been updated as well. 2 purple cars. We're still a little bit skeptical as to whether they've been colluding with each other on these liveries. Both looking absolutely awesome. Of course, nice line there through Sterling's, of course, by Monkey Matt. And he's got a good run on Caleb here. He might just have to wait. the end of Brabham Straight, see if he can find a way through at Paddock Hill Bend. It is tricky, that last lap, to overtake through Druids, because as he said, it goes from you're on the outside, then suddenly you're on the inside, then suddenly you're on the outside again, and there's no overtaking opportunity. On the inside line, though, there's a little bit of a look. Monkey Matt using all the psychological pressure he possibly can on Caleb to try and force an error, but it's come of nothing so far. Will he send it up the inside at Druids? No, he's learned his lesson this time, but Caleb has braked too deep and opened himself up for attack on the inside. That's, of course, going to set us in the same position as we were last time. So it's a deja vu here at Brands Hatch for these two. They're going for it, following each other's lines, inside, outside, off track, on track.
Mate, that entire line from turn 1 right to like the end of the sector 1 was pretty much carbon copy from the last lap. So Monkey Matt's, again, he's really making his intentions clear. He wants to pass Caleb. And meanwhile, Dive Cable's driving away. Dive Cable's in that no man's land. He's not under attack. He's not attacking. So he's just, he's just another day in the office. Again, we talked about how good he is at his consistency. And again, even looking at his times, 30.5, 30.6, 30.6. So he's just, he's just comfortable. And but yeah, Caleb under assault by Monkey Matt, and now Nemo, if this carries on too much longer, Nemo's going to be able to buy into the action. So again, where do you look? Because there's just so much action across the grid. It's this is the sort of racing that we love to see.
Exactly right. 6 laps down, onto the 7th lap we go in a few moments' time, with Matthew McEwing still leading the race away. P8. And we'll carry on down our grid. Stone Harbour and P8 at the moment. This is actually a really good position for Stone Harbour. He's been elevated from Div 2 in the top 10. That's going to be worth a lot of points, but he is coming into the pits early. Okay, 6 laps there. So I think we can pretty much say that he's on the soft tyre, and yes, he is. Okay, it's not actually that early. We thought that 4 or 5 laps maybe for the softs. He's managed to extend to 6.
So that's about within Kui, and obviously those playing at home, there's your soft runner. So everyone else is on either the mediums or the hard tyres, as we're just going to see. Yeah, so he fills the tank. He's filled it right up. So again, going to be interesting to see if he needs to fill it up for lap 7. Is he going to need to do another fuel spot later on in the race? But he's come out dead last. But again, as much as that can be a bit discouraging right here, right now, once everyone else is pitted, then yeah, the pecking order should sort of sort itself out. So all he has to do is really just crack on with it. Should we go through the order at the moment, George? So we've got McEwen in the lead. He's high and dry, and got a good gap to Simon Bishop, who's currently in that beautiful Igor Fraga TRS livery, very suitable given we are also in an 86. So shiny and chrome. HC Lewis, he's in 3rd. He's actually catching Simon, so we might see a bit of a challenge for the silver not too far away. But again, tyre life is coming into question now. Dive Cable in 4th. He's comfy as, again, just another day for him. And then we've got Caleb, Monkey Matt, and Emo, which of course is the story we've been following for the last couple of laps. Big Head Ted, Big Head Ted's getting challenged by Scotty. So Scotty's probably going to think about having a lunge at Big Head Ted too, because that's what you do when you're racing. And then Airborne rounds out your top 10, high and dry, and pretty uneventful.
Exactly right. Looking further down the grid, P11 to Fatboy Hustle, and he is under pressure from GD Crimson, who is an unusual face to see outside of the top 10 at the moment. Of course, he did qualify right at the tippy top of the grid and fell a little bit victim to some interesting maneuvers by other drivers and himself through Red Bull Ring. Wow, that's a very confident attempt at an overtake around the outside at Druids from GD Crimson, but being held up right now by the formerly Div 2 driver in Fatboy Hustle. But P12 at the moment for GD Crimson. He's going to really want to get a move on, because the points that you get for P12 just keeps you out of the relegation zone. That'll obviously change up as we head throughout the online season. P13 is, of course, Clan Fever at the moment, who apparently was involved in some contact I saw in chat. So it looks like Clan Fever not having the best time out there, maybe even be holding a bit of damage on that car. And he's got Stone Harbour right on the back of him. So these two about 10 seconds off the back of GD Crimson. And look, Stone Harbour's going to drive around him on the inside. Well,
Stone Harbour's already pitted, and Clan hasn't, so straight away he's going to have the tyre advantage. Crimson, you talked about how he's dropped down a bit. He had probably the worst start, so he got a bit high and dry and almost didn't quite make a mess of it around Paddock Hill, but he certainly he was the net loss. As we just see too, Lewis has just dived into the pits too, so Lewis is the first of the sort of front pack to blink and make the switch. And I believe he's actually stayed on the same set of tyres that he was on, so he's holding on to the mediums for here and now.
Interesting. So he's gone for a bit of a splash and dash there, holding onto the mediums for a little bit longer. Lap 9 now we are on. And yeah, it's just the fact that Clan Fever is so far behind now that one person has pitted and is right on his rear tail, or in fact now past him. We've got another in the pits too. See if we can find out who that is. I think it's last place. Yes, it is Clan Fever. Onto the medium tyres, it looks like, and not too much fuel. I think he just needed to get in and get things going. This lead by Matthew McEwen starting to evolve quite a bit, nearly reaching 2 seconds. Simon Bishop, I think, will be pretty happy right now because he's no longer got Lewis Atkinson on his rear bumper, which is going to give him a little bit of headspace just to think about the car ahead instead of the car behind. Car ahead, of course, being the leader of this race, just going through Sheen's curve now into Sterling's, my favorite corner. A little bit of grass on the inside on the exit there. Absolutely love that corner. It feels so good. It's flowing. It's got a nice bit of inward camber towards the apex too, so you feel like you've got a lot of grip there until you suddenly don't.
Oh, Caleb just made a bit of a mess on that exit there. He's really, Monkey Matt's putting the blowtorch on him. He is really hurting. And the problem too that he's got is that he's understeering that final corner. The pit entry is on the inside, so if/when he's going to want to pit, he's going to have to really slow down to get that nose and get it into the pits. And Monkey Matt's not going to want to wait around. So it's, yeah, man, it's such an evolving situation at the moment because, again, this is potentially race changing stuff. If Caleb and Monkey Matt tangle, then that has championship implications, not just on them but on everybody else. So
that's right. Yeah, you want, when you're in a position that's really close on track, you really want to start to work. There's a point that you go, right, I'm not going to get past this guy anytime soon, or I've not found a way to get past him yet. Now I need to work together. And you know, we don't condone the bump drafting stuff, but you've got to start not trying overtakes at every single opportunity because it just slows both of your races down. And the overall concept of a 28 lap race, even though it is, you know, it's not a 4-hour race, it's not an 8-hour race, but it still matters. In fact, it matters a lot, especially when you're trying to look after tyres and when you don't have that grip. We've seen Simon Bishop, he's jumped into the pits, and looks like Lewis Atkinson with that splash and dash has gotten up ahead of him. Nemo also jumping into the pits, both of them just above 50% fuel and on the medium tyre. I think Simon Bishop has changed tyres though, judging by the gap, or maybe he hasn't because he's right behind HC Lewis, but HC Lewis has found a way up ahead of him.
Yeah, I think he's changed tyres, but yeah, I think he's stuck with the mediums as well. So there's a couple of these guys that are not actually, I mean, they have to use all 3 compounds. So these people that are sticking with their mediums, let's just pay attention to McEwen, what compound he comes out of. He was on the medium, and he's now on the softs. Okay, so McEwen's intending to really push this particular stint. But the people that have stuck with their current tyre set, or their compound, they're going to have to pit twice more. So do the benefits outweigh the grip, or again, I don't really have the strategy mind for that on the fly, but these guys do, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out in, you know, many more laps time.
Exactly right. So we're on board with Lewis Atkinson right now. Matthew McEwen's just, and I mean only just, come out ahead of him. That is really fortunate for Matthew McEwen, especially on the soft tyre, but he's got a bit of traffic to deal with. There's Monkey Matt ahead of him, there's Caleb ahead of him, there's Dive Cable ahead of him, and they are right on the back of that pack. Really important. A few comments from chat here. Some feeling that McEwen may have used a lot of fuel. Interesting, as Matt does go for a move there on Monkey Matt. So Matthew McEwen up now into P3. So that means the next person to go on through Monkey Matt is going to have to be Lewis Atkinson. He's got a very fast Simon Bishop just behind him. Lewis, the earlier pitter out of those top 3, Matthew McEwen, Simon Bishop and Lewis, but Lewis, of course, finding his way back up into essentially what is P2 in this race. Monkey Matt on those worn tyres now. But yeah, it is one of those fascinating things, isn't it? You know, big moment for HC Lewis, nearly bins it on the exit of Sterling's, just pushing a little bit too hard, but I think he knows he needs to be within that slipstream range of Matthew McEwen for any chance here as Monkey Matt pulls off to the right-hand side, goes into the pit, as does Dive Cable, so 2 more into the pits. 40% fuel for each and on the medium tyres. No surprise there with the tyre choice at the moment. But yeah, for Lewis, he needs to get up to the rear end of Matthew McEwen, and soon. But if he's on the medium still and Matthew McEwen is on the soft, well, that's going to be a tricky thing to do. Monkey Matt switching to the soft tyres, and we've got, I think that was Dive Cable switching to the hard tyres.
Yeah, and again, this is where we're starting to see the different strategies. Obviously, they have 3 tyre sets to work with, so there's all these different possibilities, probabilities. Do you start with the softs and go hard? Do you start with the hards and go soft? Do you do the Goldilocks option and go sort of something in the middle? And the other thing too is fuel. do you take on all of your fuel in one big gulp, which of course you're sitting there stopped for longer, or do you do quick little splashes in between those stops? So, you know, we're seeing that sort of play out now with some people are running heavier fuel loads. They've taken that time penalty, not penalty, but they've taken a longer stop to get all the fuel out of the way now, versus the people who are perhaps trying to minimize their time in the pits, and potentially they run the risk of coming up a bit short on fuel numbers.
Exactly. So here's Caleb, and technically he's technically overall in P2 at the moment. Of course, taking pole position, but Matthew McKeown now finding a way through, puts a huge amount of time on him in the space of a couple of corners, nearly a second there. So Matthew McKeown absolutely flying. I think that's just a good nod to the state of Caleb's tyres as they are right now. I believe Caleb pitted quite early in this race, on about lap. No, I don't think he has pitted.
No,
Correct me if I'm wrong. I
think he's one of the few that haven't pitted yet.
Yeah, that's
Lewis pitted, Simon's pitted. I don't think Big Head. So Caleb and Big Head Ted, I believe, or possibly Crimson as well. You're only ones who haven't pitted yet. Yeah, and again, look, they've obviously got a strategy formulated. They are all on the hards, so they're trying to get their money's worth out of those hard tyres. But the trade-off will be obviously the increased pace that comes with the grippier, softer rubber.
That's exactly right. Lewis Atkinson does make a move now on Caleb. It's a nice move up the inside at Surtees, and he's going to be side by side, actually, these two. So it was a good run out of the corner for Caleb, but Lewis giving him absolutely no space, squeezing him like a lemon.
Smart from Caleb there to get out of that. He could have kept his foot in and forced the issue, but that was only going to end in tears. There's a few drivers that could probably learn a few lessons in that regard about driving manners and working with other people to get to the front of the grid, because, you know, some people don't like to play well with others. They really just want to bash and crash and force their way to the front. Doesn't always work, but you just saw that from Caleb. He was smart, he was mature, he just backed out a little bit. He said, look, you have it for now, I'll try again later. And I mean, obviously he's compromised too. He's still yet to pit, so I'd be very surprised if he doesn't pit now. No, it looks like he's going in for the pit. So that's just smart, mature driving there from Caleb, and that's why he's at the level that he's at.
Yep, exactly right. Yeah, pick your battles, I think, is the phrase that describes that most eloquently. It's don't fight when you don't need a fight, and especially when you're planning to come into the pits, then you know, look, it doesn't matter at this point. Getting a position here or there. And at the end of the day, let's be honest, Hawthorn is not the place to try down the inside, whether you're overtaking or defending. The shallow line of the Hawthorn, yeah, it's a guarantee for an accident, or you running wide off the exit of the corner. It is such a difficult place to be on the inside line. Any kind of shallow entry to the apex, good luck. And say your prayers, because you're going to be finding the Shadow Realm at some point pretty soon. Right, so let's take a quick review of where we're at in terms of the positions. We've had essentially one round of pit stops for most on the grid, now especially with Caleb coming into the pits. So we've got Matthew McKeown up in P1, followed by H.C. Lewis in P2, then Simon Bishop in P3, hunting down Lewis Atkinson. Doesn't want to give Atkinson another chance to finish ahead of him in Gran Turismo 7 racing. Then, of course, Monkey Matt, now in P4. Doesn't have Caleb in front of him. We'll see where Caleb does end up coming out, but I don't think it'll be anywhere near where Monkey Matt is. Then Nemo in P5, followed by Big Head Ted, who's made up a few positions, and which is good for him. Had a little bit of a rough qualifying, did he? But he's found some legs here in the race, and that's going to show his skill. Then GD Crimson, who's found also a bit of good pace out here, still yet to pit from what we can tell. Then Dive Cable has gone into the pits, and is now fighting his way back through the pack to try and get himself up to that top 5 once again. And of course, Caleb, who's just come into the pits a moment ago, and he'll be so glad to be on fresh tyres once again, because he was certainly understeering pretty much every single corner. In comes Big Head Ted and GD Crimson ahead of him, so that'll elevate Caleb up to P7. Looking further down the grid, Airborne in P10, followed by Scotty Ray in P11. P12 goes to Stone Harbour, then Clan Fever in P13. And rounding out the grid is Fatboy Hustle, who looks like he's just come out on an outlap and pitted again. And GD Crimson will be reasonably close to him on grid when he comes out of the pit. So, yeah, fascinating lineup so far. We've just reached half race distance. And to be honest, Nathan, you know, we're following the pit stops as best we can, but 14 different strategies being executed right out there on track.
Oh, mate, and again, which strategy is going to be the one that works? Well, we won't know until that checkered flag. Interesting too, Dive Cable, currently sitting in 6th. He's got the most fuel out of pretty much anyone on track at the moment, so I reckon he's done that that early take all the fuel and then just drive it. You know, so his next pit stops are going to be shorter. He's not too stressed for fuel. That might well be the golden ticket there. He might have bought himself a ticket to that final battle.
We've got a three-way battle evolving here. We've got Scotty Ray, Big Head Ted, and Stone Harbor all fighting it out for the P9 position. Oh, Big Head Ted makes a big send up the inside. He's going to have to give space on the exit as they head through into the Dingledell. One of my favorite corner names in all of racing. A little bit wide on the entry there from Stone Harbor, but still holding on beautifully. Great three-way battle evolving between these three, but it looks like Big Head Ted's going to have an advantage. He's already put a bunch of time onto Scotty Ray, and so it's going to be now Scotty Ray versus Stone Harbor. Two formerly Div 2 drivers battling it out to try and see who gets into the top 10 in Div 1. That's massive because for points-wise, that could guarantee them a position for round 3, which is a 2-race round as well, bear in mind.
Yes, that's a good
Div
point
1.
too. That's a good point too. I think Ted was just trying to force his way past there because he's very recently pitted. So he's on fresh rubber, and obviously he didn't want to waste all of his tyre grip trying to push through people that perhaps haven't pitted yet. That's not to say that he's allowed to just push to pass. He has to be a bit nicer than that, and even then we just see Stoney bump a little bit, and he's actually redressed and given the position back. These guys there is post-race stewarding, so if any of the drivers, if there's an incident that they sort of flag as a bit dodgy or that was a bit subpar, they can protest it, and there can be post-race action. So, you know, that they don't have a free ticket to just punt everybody out of the way and win by by destruction derby. But yeah, look, in that instance, and Caleb with a half a second penalty, George, that is race changing.
That's massive. So he's sitting in P6 at the moment. Matthew McCune has just come into the pit, so he's only spent a few laps on those tyres, soft tyres. He'll be coming in for the hard tyres now with 12 laps remaining, so going with the estimated time on those hard tyres, and he's got almost no fuel on board. So this will be a precision fuel up from Matthew McCune to get to the end of this race. Caleb with that 0.5 second penalty, though, it's going to put him right in range of Dive Cable, who's so consistent. And as you were saying before, really good to see the redress there. Of course, at the end of the day, the post-race stewarding will take into account whether you redressed or not, but it is the way to go, because fair racing at the end of the day, Nathan, is good racing, and that's all we like to see, especially in series with this. We don't want to see people pushing to pass. We want good, clean overtakes. Go and take pages out, literally rip pages out of the book of overtaking and use those. We don't need that other book.
There really is. There's an art, there's a finesse to overtaking. Anybody can fight their way through a crowd from the back, but only the truly talented can actually race hard and clean and fair. And I mean, you're seeing it right now, but oh man, poor Caleb's just, you can tell he's rattled. He's just really, like, again, Dive Cable's now the one who's putting the blowtorch on him. He's got a bit of breathing room now, but yeah, he definitely felt his presence there on the radar in the rearview mirror. But so just watching Monkey Matt's actually, he's really gotten the full experience out of those soft tires and his fuel lights on. So he's one of those guys who looks like he's running the really like calculated fuel numbers as Lewis also dives into the pit. So again, a few of these guys who are trying to take it sort of pit stop by pit stop, and then you've got people like Dive Cable who look like they've largely filled up for the rest of the race. In fact, Dive Cable might need to chuck in a little bit more, but he definitely took a big drink of petrol on that first stop. So, and this is that sort of awkward overlapping part of the race where some guys are pitted earlier, some guys are pitted later. So the pecking order is going to change pretty dramatically here and there. But again, who do you put your money on? Who do you predict is going to win? Because there's just so much drama going on, even if it's not vehicle to vehicle drama, it's tactics, it's who's running what tires, who's around who, and just the traffic and all the different stories that can play out with this type of mode. This is why we love Group 4 racing, isn't it, George? Group 3 is cool, anything fast is cool, but Group 4 is very much driver oriented and focused.
It is, and Group 4 really exacerbates small mistakes, and we saw that with Matthew McCune last time out at Red Bull Ring. It's one small mistake and things can go awry, and I think it really, whether they took the softs or mediums or hards first or last or refueled this amount or not, it's really going to come down to how much time they spent in the gravel, how many mistakes they've made, how much time they've spent fighting. It's those other aspects of racing that are going to come in. It's about the strategy. There's a lot of execution to it, of course, and you've got to get that right, but you've got to minimize the mistakes as well. And yeah, interesting with Caleb as well. let's put ourselves back in round 1 for just a second. He qualified P6. Okay, no pressure. It's the first round, qualified P6. Let's see what happens. Ends up in P2 by the end of lap 1. Okay, a little bit of pressure. Then suddenly, Matthew McKeown out of the race. Oh, not out of the race, but not in first place. Suddenly, Caleb's in the first place and right towards the end of the race as well. Here, qualifies on pole. Pressure from the get-go. And it looks like he was on a slightly different tyre compound to the rest of the guys, so under pressure immediately. And maybe that was the difference here. Just a little bit too much pressure on board for Caleb. We shall see. Nemo is in the pits. He's come out on hard tyres and 61% of fuel, looking to take those tyres the last 8 laps of this race. We are on lap 19 here, round 2 of the NZERS. Thank you, everyone in chat. Continue chatting. We'll have a poll up at the end of the race with a few key drivers, 5 of them, who are going to take part in the Driver of the Day poll, and we want your votes so that we can hand out that reward. But the question still remains, who is going to be on P1 by the end of this race? Simon Bishop is in the lead at the moment with a 13-second gap over HC Lewis, but I believe he has another pit stop to make.
And the fastest lap at the moment is actually Big Head Ted, who's currently sitting in 7th. He's done a 1:29.1, so there's, we're not quite qualifying laps, but to do that in the race with a full load of fuel and obviously tyres that are, he can't just return to pits and get a fresh set. That's some pretty ripping pace from him. Monkey Matt's just gotten his way past, but of course he pitted a lot later than Ted. So it'll be, we're really starting to see. In fact, he's going to run out of tyres as he just takes to the grass. And his front left is called time. That's enough, son. There's a puncture. So Gran Turismo doesn't have punctures as such, but once you fully deplete your tyre, the little white bar of life there, the grip is just drastically reduced. It's basically a puncture. So he's going to take to the pits and strap on a fresh set of Michelin rubber. And yeah, I mean, where do you look? There's action everywhere. George, where would you like to focus on right now?
Well, at the moment, I want to talk about HC Lewis. Apparently, he has got himself, while we were looking elsewhere, as he said, can't have eyes on every single place in the race.
Sorry,
he has
real
picked
quick,
himself
half a second penalty for McEwen.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay,
again,
well,
we saw this
interesting.
narrative at Red Bull Ring, didn't we? Where one of the front runners got a penalty, and then another one got a penalty, and so we're starting to see that sort of not trip ups, but that's going to hurt him
small
as well.
mistakes, and this is what we were talking about, the small mistakes compound. They add up and they add up, and then suddenly you find yourself not in the lead of the race. That's going to be news to the ears of Caleb and Dive Cable, who maybe find themselves a little bit closer to the former leaders of this race as well. I heard in chat HC Lewis picked up a penalty as well, so it's not just HC Lewis, it's also Matthew McKeown, and so that means that the only person who hasn't got a penalty out of the original top 3 after that first lap is Simon Bishop. He's on a lap right now. He's done his last pits. He's gotten rid of those medium tyres. He had to do a lot of fuel up, ended up in the pits on 2% of fuel. He's got Monkey Matt 2 seconds behind him, and another 2 seconds up the road is Matthew McKeown. This is going to be an epic fight to the end, and that penalty, it might just come back a little bit more than Matthew McKeown would have liked it to towards Simon Bishop's favour today.
Yeah, Bishop's not going to get him this time, so he's not under any immediate danger. But you certainly don't want to go giving up any pace to your rivals, especially in a race with so much on the line. But look, and once he's served that penalty, he's just got to clear his head, mentally reset, and just keep punching out the laps. I mean, you're seeing it now with Dive Cable. I just had a look at his lap times: 31.5, 31.5, 31.3, 31.5. So again, he's just dialed in. He doesn't need to push, he doesn't need to prove anything. He's 3rd. So I mean, he's just such a dark horse pick for doing well in this series. He may not win outright. I mean, he might, but he's certainly doing better than most just by doing consistent laps. So
yep.
Again, anyway, Lewis, we started talking about Lewis. He's also running a very low fuel number. He's pretty much out of fuel. He's probably going to want to box this lap. But again, 4.3 seconds to Caleb, and of course Caleb's had the race that he's had, and we've talked about the dramas that have sort of happened there. But yeah, this is really starting to play, and as we sort of creep down, we're 6 laps to go this time round. Now you start to sort of think, okay, has my strategy worked out, and what can I salvage of this?
That's right. It's going to be fascinating. So we head now towards lap 22. The order is Lewis Atkinson in the lead, followed by Caleb then Dive Cable, who, you know, as we said before, it comes down to consistency with these cars and the class of car that we're using in the Group 4 category in the Toyota 86 racing vehicles. So Dive Cable just executing his races to perfection with a consistency that we really don't see from many others on the grid. He may not have the pace, as we said before, but boy, oh boy, is he consistent. Matthew McKeown, though, right on his rear bumper, going to be looking for a move anytime soon in P4 right now, followed by Simon Bishop a couple of seconds behind him down the road. Then Monkey Matt, Nemo, and GD Crimson, your top 8 at the moment. Fastest lap is now in the 28s, Nathan. We saw it here. We got qualifying times in, I think, just a little bit slower than that. Now HC Lewis says, you know what? I'm going to set an even better time. Here's a 28.949. Thank you very much. Take a bow, sir. And look, Matthew McKeown, is he going to try down the inside at Hawthorne? Oh, please be careful, chaps. Oh, Dive Cable says, I don't want any piece of that whatsoever. You can have the place.
Yeah, I think Dive Cable saw that one coming. He was wise to sort of just step aside and, you know, look, again, he could fight. He's totally within his right to fight. This, you know, we're not dealing with lap traffic here, but again, he's playing the long game. He's happy to just sit back and wait, and if McEwen picks up another half a second penalty, then Dive Cable gains. So again, it's picking your battles. It's that maturity and that intelligence that comes with just making these sorts of decisions. Lewis just come into the pits with 1 litre of fuel, so he really timed that last that fuel number right. And yeah, now we get to see and this is the thing too. Will he fill it? Will he fill up enough? Do these guys give themselves enough to run out just on the finish line, or are they going to come up short, or are they going to? Because, you know, if I was in their shoes, I'd just go a litre more, or 2 litres more, or you know, just have something of a buffer for insurance. Because nothing worse than running out this close to the end.
Yeah, and we were talking about that before this race. We were exchanging a couple of stories that we've experienced with regards to fueling up not quite enough at the end, and it is the most painful thing to see out there on track. However, all of these cars, drivers here, they know exactly how much time is going to be cost by that refueling. I think I believe it's 3 litres per second that is refueled. So every 3 points that goes into the car, you're getting a second off your time on track. You want to limit that as much as possible. So even a couple of extra litres in there, just to make sure, well, it's suddenly you're a second further behind who you are racing. So it can be a really tricky decision. It's probably one of the most difficult elements of racing in Gran Turismo 7. And these drivers here on the grid execute this to absolute perfection. The fact that you get to the end of a lap there and an end of a stint, and you have 1% of fuel on board, really, really impressive timing. Let's hope he can get across the line and not put himself in a situation of running out of fuel. So
absolutely not. This will be the pit stop that decides the race. Sorry, Caleb's just jumped into the pits.
Yes, I was about to say, yes.
So this is going to decide how the closing stanza, because he's going to come out behind McEwen. Oh, Simon's pitted as well. Monkey Matt's pitted as well. So it looks like it's going to be McEwen, then Lewis, then Caleb. And I mean, we're just seeing so many different strategies. We've got Caleb on one compound, we've got Simon on another, we've got Monkey Matt on yet another, so we've got 3 compounds of tyres between 3 drivers to end out this race. And again, who's made the right call? We've got, 5 laps to go.
Yeah, we do indeed. Wow, absolutely fascinating. Nemo also in the pits now, 35% of fuel, so he doesn't need to refuel, but I think he needs to get another set of the mandatory 3. Remember, folks, you've got to use the racing softs, the racing mediums, and the racing hards this race. If you don't use all of those, you are going to get a massive penalty at the end, and you can say goodbye to your race result. But yeah, Matthew McEwen not pitted there. He's got 6.8 seconds back to HC Lewis. The only one of these top guys that has not pitted right at the end of this race is on an alternative strategy to those. So it's going to be really, really fascinating. But yeah, Lewis, when he's on a fresh set of tyres and low fuel, he is an absolute weapon in basically any car. So it's going to be tricky, I think, for Matthew McEwen. He's just got to keep that pace up. We know he's entirely capable of doing so. GT World Series driver, of course, is Matthew McEwen. He's our 2023 NZERS champion too, so we know this man has got pace. But you know, he's going to be feeling like he needs to bring that win home this round. Round 1, you know, did not work out for him. He's going to be absolutely gutted because of that. And looks like if this is the finishing order, we're going to have the reverse interview order as well. We interviewed Matthew McEwen for qualifying last time in round 1, and then of course Caleb for the end of the race. Now it looks like we're going to interview Caleb for pole position in qualifying, and potentially Matthew McEwen for the race win if he can hold on. But yeah, 6.5 seconds. He's already dropped a couple of tenths, but we shall see what Lewis is capable of doing out there.
George, are you aware of what's called the commentator's curse? Because, like, I just want to point that out, that you go saying stuff like that, and then it's going to be, you know. But,
I am.
anyway,
I am
look,
more than aware. Let me tell you, I've been cursed myself for the commentator's curse. I have created things that have reverse cursed myself in races. I've done it all. Trust me.
So
but
let's talk about Caleb a little bit, because again, pole sitter, and obviously he's one of the favourites to do quite well in this series. He's sitting in third. He's doing a soft stint. Obviously, he held out doing the softs until the very end, so he's on the best rubber now. 1.5 seconds to Lewis, 8 seconds to McEwen. He might be able to get Lewis, but is he going to get McEwen? Because those softs, mate, they do not last very long. He might run out of road.
yeah, we estimated 4 laps on the softs. Some of these drivers can get them 6 if they drive within a certain margin of error. So Caleb's going to have to drive pretty consistently and pretty calmly on the softs to make them really last. I mean, at the moment, he's taking a lot of time out of HC Lewis, so almost certainly to get ahead of Lewis. But what state are the tyres going to be in towards the end? And will HC Lewis then be able to send back for an attack of his own? It's all entirely possible. They're cutting a lot of time out of McEwen too. 6 seconds to gap now.
And Caleb's taken the fastest lap by 3/1000ths of a second, so nothing in it between Lewis and Caleb for fastest lap. The thing about it too, Brands Hatch, very easy track to defend. So, as much as Caleb can sort of make a move on Lewis can just as easily defend. Not necessarily block. Obviously, there are rules about blocking and taking it too long. And look,
The hazard
look at
lights
this
are
from Lewis.
on.
He's checked the hazard lights on to try and throw Caleb off, which is that dirty? I mean, it's not illegal. There's no rule that says you can't use your indicators or your hazards or your headlights. I mean, that's cheeky. That's sportsmanship, though. I mean, look at that. It's purely a mind thing. Caleb now has to just not worry about that and try and make a move up the inside, which he's going to do. He's on a purple sector, and he gets Lewis. Now his mission is to reel in the 6 seconds to McEwen with 2.5 laps to go and soft tyres that are pretty rapidly degrading.
Yeah, he's going to have to do a lot to hold on, especially if Lewis stays within a reasonably small margin to him. By the looks of it, that's not going to be the case given Caleb's speed. That was a beautiful overtake down at Hawthorne Bend. Absolutely stunning, super, super clean as well. Lewis hitting every button on his wheel to try and find a way to stop that from happening, but unfortunately to no avail. Simon Bishop is crawling up behind them as well. 1.5 seconds the gap back to Simon Bishop from HC Lewis. So that's another battle. We need to keep an eye on the top 3 positions. Of course, not settled at all at this stage. Matthew McEwen, the gap now 4.8 seconds, Nathan. This is dropping so quickly, but this is the 27th lap. That means 4 seconds in 2 laps. That is a really tall order for Caleb, and I just don't know if he's going to be able to make up the time. It's nearly 2 seconds a lap. If he keeps doing 28, he'll be there, because 31.5 seems to be the average for Matt McEwen right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about it too is that, Caleb's on the softs, McEwen is not. So when it comes to like tyre wear percentages, they're about equal, which sounds all right on paper, but the thing about it now is that Caleb's are only going to degrade further, whereas McEwen's are not. So, I mean, does he have the grip left to... I mean, it was an 8-second gap, now it's a 6-second gap, now it's 4. So, if we're doing the math, again, and there's still the prospect of penalties. So, McEwen might get a penalty, Caleb might get a penalty, Lewis might get a penalty. Any of those would completely shake up the order, and meanwhile you've got Simon who's just waiting in the wings, happy to take a podium spot if it's offered to him. But yeah, again, it's just who's going to see the end, because
Exactly.
The general consensus in the chat seems to be that the pressure is absolutely on. It's a bit of a role reversal, like you say, from last week, with 1 lap to go now.
Yep, exactly. So we've got another battle going on as well. Big Head Ted under a lot of pressure from Nemo. Nemo on a bit of a redemption drive since dropping down into Div 2 technically. Then he got remoted, as you've coined the phrase, Nathan, earlier on. Remoted into Div 1 because we had both Scar and Pukeko unfortunately not able to make it for the Div 1 race this week. So Nemo trying to get that P7. That'll guarantee him even more points for this race. Onto the last lap we now go. It is the final lap of round 2. Big Head Ted, he's trying to hold off the approach of Nemo as much as possible. Matt McEwen, the gap now 3 seconds Nathan, I just don't think it's going to be enough time here for Caleb. He's got 2.5 seconds still to find. Then he's got to overtake. As Jackie Stewart always says, it's one thing to catch up. It's another thing to overtake out on track, especially at one that is so tricky like this. I just don't think there's enough time now for Caleb.
Yeah, he's rapidly running out of road, so I think he's probably going to have fingers crossed on a mistake on McEwen's part, because that's probably the only chance he's got left at the moment. Those softs are absolutely screaming their torture to death, and McEwen is just hitting all the corners. He's, you know, why should he be pushing right now? He's only got about 2 or 3 corners left to go. So yeah, I think that might well be the race, George. But
that might well be. So
yes.
We're heading to the last few corners here, down towards Clark Curve and onto the Brabham Straight once again. It's Matthew McEwen. He's going to be the round 2 victor on the back of qualifying pole in round 1 and then getting P2 in round 2. Now he takes home the race win there, followed by Caleb in P2. A role reversal between the two, between round 1 and round 2. Even Stevens now between these two drivers. H.C. Lewis, then Simon Bishop, not able to find enough to get past and up into the top 3. Dive Cable holds on from Monkey Matt. Big Head Ted looks to be holding on as well from Nemo. Yes, he's just managed to do it as they head up the Brabham Straight, and that P7 will be secured. But what a drive back from Nemo. GD Crimson in P9 comes across the line. Then we've got Stone Harbour airborne in P11, Scotty in P12, and the further down the waters again, Fatboy Hustle, and then Clan Fever, unfortunately, will be finishing last this time out. That is a gutting result for Clan Fever, and we shall see how that affects his position in the divisions going into round 3. But what a race that was, Nathan. Absolutely brilliant racing, and Matthew McEwen pulls off what is a brilliant victory at Brands Hatch for round 2.
Oh, mate. Absolutely. And again, what a venue to follow up from Red Bull Ring. You've gone from a track that's sort of very, like I said, very GT suited as far as racing and overtaking opportunities. And then this was a venue that perhaps wasn't so hard, it wasn't so easy, but I mean, it made for good racing all the same. What a drive, what a performance. And I mean, McEwen will just be happy that he's made up for his mistake last week. And yeah, what more is there to say, really?
Yeah, what a fascinating way to have round 1 and round 2. So let's recall a couple of things here. Round 1, we had Matthew McEwen qualifying pole, and then a winner's interview with Caleb. Now we've got Caleb having the qualifying pole interview, and Matthew McEwen's going to step into the race interview in a few moments' time. Before we get to that, we want to kick off a poll. So let's just quickly take a moment here, and Nathan, you and me, while we all look at the results up on screen right now, we're going to put up a poll for driver of the day. And Nathan, we need to come up with 5 drivers who have performed well today. So please give me 2 or 3 of your picks.
Well, I mean, we can't take away from McEwen or Caleb. I think, given the circumstances, they're definite additions to the driver of the day. Just cross-referencing the quali order to the race order. So we had who else? Really, I mean, Nemo, obviously, in his demotion risk race to come home, I'd say safely. I think it's safe to say we'll see him in Div 1 next week. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many different like race narratives and stories that played out. I mean, obviously, it's one thing to just win, but then some of these guys are really battling to make the live finals. So it's there's a lot of different contexts and stories across the grid here, even though it's you know, obviously winning is was what we're here to do.
Yep, exactly. So I'm going to put in Dive Cable and Stone Harbour as well. We're going to let the poll run for the next well, let's do 10 minutes.
Psydog as well, P4, while in the condition that he's in. He's not.
That's true, because Simon Bishop is ill at the moment. That is very true too. Yeah. So there's more than 6. That's the problem. I mean, we've only got 5 slots, so someone's going to have to. Someone's going to have to slip out.
You're the lead commentary, so you
yes,
make.
I have to make the hard decision. Yes. So we're going to put Psydog in there. There we go. Okay, we've got a poll coming up in chat now. Give us your driver of the day. 5 minutes on the poll, starting right now. So go and give yourselves a little bit of a vote. We're about to go to our race interview in just a moment's time, so we will jump over to the race interview in just a second, which is going to be now, of course, with Matthew McEwen. So let's go and have a chat to Matthew McEwen, who you know, was starting in P2, of course, in this race, and now finds himself over in the top spot. And Matthew, Hopefully you can hear us, and hopefully we can hear you. But the winner's interview, powered by Next Level Racing, up now, and wow, what a race! Great strategy execution from you today, Matthew. And of course, you would have liked to been doing the winner's interview last week. That was Caleb's pleasure to do last week. Now we find Caleb in the qualifying pole, but not able to convert that into a race win, and then you convert it into a race win. So a fascinating switch up. But how was that race for you, and how are you feeling?
I do want to say I did kind of prophesize that it would go the other way, that perhaps Caleb might take the pole because he was really quite quick in practice. And then I saw a couple of laps from him in late practice, and I was like, I don't think that I'm going to be able to beat him on pace. And so I was actually pretty happy with the qualifying, just because P2 for me was it was always going to be pretty good because I just didn't have enough time to practice for this one, unfortunately. And so, I was actually really, really stoked with the race. I really wasn't expecting too much from this week.
Yeah, well, you've done well, of course. P1 has got to be a good feeling, regardless. So you haven't had the practice. Yep, but you've ended up with the race win. It was a good strategy execution right at the end there. You were going obviously quite slow. It was a long stint at the end, and you were watching all these guys pit late, suddenly onto a soft tire, and thinking, okay, well, there's going to be a bunch of really fast guys coming at me. But first lap, absolutely critical. Then you ended up on the inside into turn one at the end of lap one, and got that position away from Caleb, who really held on as long as he could at the first lap, but just not quite long enough to secure himself that P1 in the long run. He would have loved to kept you held up a little bit more. What was the feeling once you got past? Did you know that the race was really on at that point for a race win?
Oh, absolutely. That was absolutely key because obviously, if he was able to hold me off for a good 2 or 3 laps, it was really, really going to put me in a bad position. I was absolutely relying on him getting kind of parked up in all the cars behind him. I knew that he was on hards. And I knew that a couple of the guys behind me were on mediums as well. And so I knew that if I could get past him, hopefully everyone else would just trample him. And, well, that's exactly kind of how it went, really. He went all the way down from first, I think, to fifth just on that stint. And, really got kind of smacked around, which was all part of the plan the moment I realized that everyone was on mediums except him. And so, yeah, getting past him on lap one, absolutely key. And then, yeah, the race was 100% on from there. Could have gone either way, quite a way through.
Yes, well, we were talking about this through the stream. It comes down to how few mistakes you're making, and I know that's a general thing that you could say about all racing. But in the Group 4 cars, it seems like these small little mistakes are compounding more and more in the overall scheme of the race. And we saw that with Red Bull Ring. You didn't put a step wrong until it all went wrong all of a sudden. Now here it was sort of small mistakes made in strategy that sort of added up across this 3 mandatory tires to get done. So and with such high tire degradation, the grip drop off is massive. So suddenly you find yourself oversteering. Suddenly your tires are dirty. Suddenly there's 4 cars coming past you, and then you're in the battle of your life with people overtaking left and right and slowing you down. So yeah, as you said, getting past early was absolutely key. And then the consistency throughout the race. You didn't put a step wrong throughout all of it, basically, except for that one little penalty that we did notice that you got. I think, was it you who got a penalty, or was it Simon?
Yes.
I think you got the penalty, didn't you? Yeah.
I was quite annoyed, actually. It looked like it was fine. Of course, as a chase cam user, I get to watch my car, and it looked like it was clean. I was really quite shocked, but, can't let it get to you.
It's the FIA and the white lines thing, man. They've got cameras everywhere, and we just can't avoid it. If it's 1 pixel, they'll get you. But yeah, so thank you very much, Matthew. Congratulations on the race win in round 2. That's going to elevate you right up in the standings, back to where you'd like to be. And it really is on. You and Caleb, we're looking forward to more, and we wish you good luck for next round. Thank you very much for the interview.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you then.
Fantastic. So big thanks there, of course, to Simon Bishop. And we're going to, once my mouse starts working again, there we go. Mouse has finally started working again. So let's bring up the poll, because the poll's about to elapse, and then we can bring up Nathan on the full screen. There he is. Nathan, yeah, so interesting to hear from Matt. He was really banking on getting past Caleb early on and just letting Caleb dive back into the craziness that was. And we do have a result now for Driver of the Day for round 2, and it looks like it's Stone Harbour. So a top 10 finish from Stone Harbour. Coming up from Div 2, has really impressed the masses today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's really hard to sort of get across just how much of a feat that is, because some people would look at that and go, 10th, really? Like what's so special about that? But then you understand, obviously how round one went for him, and he's with the big boys now, and yeah, that's certainly that's an awesome feat from him, and that's got to give him a bit of confidence for the next one too. It shows him that he deserves to be here, and he's just as much a contender as any of the others. So no,
Yep.
awesome stuff. Happy for him.
Exactly. Yeah, and that'll give him a really good points boost. I think that's going to be enough. My math is really terrible in real time, but I think that's going to be just enough to keep him in Div 1 for round 3 as well, which is a double header. So that's actually even more important, potentially even more points for him to get in that third round to keep himself in Div 1, which is excellent. So Stone Harbor, he said he ain't no center at the beginning. He came into the stream and said, look, I ain't no center. I ain't expecting too much. Well, he's got driver of the day coming up from Div 2 to Div 1. Really impressive story, and taking home a top 10 finish. That's going to guarantee him potentially a chance for even more points going forward.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, that's got to be a bit of an ease his mind going into, especially a double header, because if he was worried that, oh, I don't deserve to be here, what am I doing here, and then he's got a 2-race meeting next week. I mean, that's So look, and what better tracks than to do a double header than Tokyo? So I mean, that's Tokyo and
Exactly.
Kyoto, which are fictional tracks. They don't exist in real life, but they've been specifically designed for some pretty epic racing. So yeah, we're in for a treat tomorrow, aren't we? Oh, next week.
Next
not
week,
tomorrow.
it is
I'd
next
like it
week.
to
So
be tomorrow.
everyone get practicing right now because your race is tomorrow. Rescheduling things.
Jokes on you, yeah.
Exactly, jokes on you guys. Yeah, sorry, we've got race document version 5 coming up in about 3 minutes. So get practicing. But no, round 3, of course, on the 20th of September, 8 p.m, same time, same place, here on the Respawn Esports Twitch, the NZ Sim Racing TV Twitch, and YouTube. Of course, it'll be 2 races, which is really fantastic. Kyoto Driving Park, Yamajiwa plus Miyabi. Which is going to be brilliant. So 1 race there, and then a course track, Tokyo Expressway south counterclockwise. Oh boy, yeah, it's going to be great. And of course, I love the scenery there too. It's no more of the British green hills and potential weather disasters. It is going to be Tokyo, hopefully warm and sunny, and in the beautiful cityscape that is Tokyo. And then, of course, the Kyoto Driving Park, 2 beautiful places to go racing. And we're really looking forward to that. Of course, we've got our standings will be updated and posted in our Discord and on our socials. So make sure you go and check us out and follow. We're on Instagram and TikTok. You're the socials man here. You tell me if I'm wrong. TikTok and Instagram for Respawn Esports. And where else can we find the information, Nathan?
Oh, anywhere you want to look, YouTube,
Anywhere
Discord,
you want to look,
Facebook, just if you've got a social, then it's probably there. So yeah, absolutely, it's definitely get involved, get behind these guys, get behind the guys that get behind these events, and yeah, it's just we're privileged to be able to put on these sorts of events, and I mean we were talking about this before stream, George. We love these sorts of premier level sim racing events. It's all well and good to have a nice like-minded league with mates, but this is some pretty big stuff. There's some pretty funky prizes on the line. So yeah, no, it's great fun, great entertaining. Hope you guys are enjoying watching it too. And yeah, double header next week, so bonus, right?
Exactly right. It's going to be a great one. So please join us again next week for more NZ Esports Racing Series action. Big thanks, of course, to all of our sponsors out there. Toyota Gazoo Racing New Zealand for sponsoring the main prize, where the winner of the live final on the 16th of November gets a factory drive at a Toyota 86. Real car. It's going to be absolutely awesome. So a bunch of other prizes as well from Next Level Racing. We've got Red Bull coming on board as well. Big thanks to Respawn Esports Centre and Secret Labs, and of course New Zealand Esports as well for sponsoring this event with their name of NZ Esports. So the racing series continues. Nathan, we're looking forward to it very much. So one quick final word from you, then we'll go to our outro, and then that's going to be the stream for today.
Who's ready to go to Japan?
Yeah, we certainly are. Brilliant. Well, big thank you to Nathan Howe in the commentary box, as always. My name is George Cook. You've been watching the NZERS Round 2. We'll be back in 1 week's time for a double header at Round 3 on the 20th of September. Get followed, get involved, stay tuned. There's going to be so much more to enjoy as we head towards the live finals on the 16th of November here in Wellington at the Respawn Esports Centre. Thank you very much from us here in the commentary box. Good evening, good night, and we will see you next time. Thank you very much.